Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host Paul Rook, and as always we are exclusive to the PA UK radio network, and we are also joined in the studio as normal with Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements, both stupendous people, I might add.
I thought he was going to say someone else then.
So did I.
I was looking around.
I like to keep you on your toes, what can I say?
Something has his sanctus.
Oh, you always do.
us.
Yeah. Oh.
How have you been doing this week?
Yeah, it's been a nice week. I've had a week off.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Richard?
Well, has it? Yeah, I've been all right, you know, just poodling along, but I know Kerry hasn't been too well lately, have you, Kerry?
No, I'm pretty much over my bug.
Good.
The more I
Good.
talk, the more you hear my voice go. But so we're all right at the moment because I haven't been talking
Yeah.
today. Do you know what I mean? But later on, as the show goes on, you might hear my voice crack a bit and cough a bit. But it's
But
okay.
bear with.
I'm pretty much there. Feeling a lot better. Thank you.
Oh, that's
Good.
That's good to hear.
Yes, I'm feeling a lot
absolutely.
better.
Yeah, 'cause you were
I'm so glad you are better, because then you get the research done then.
I didn't. Richard did it this week for me. I've been
my
super lazy
research,
this
this-
week.
Well, we'll get more work
I
out
was
of you.
ill, so you know.
Well, we'll get more work out of you next week. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll cut that pound of flesh now, shall I?
Yeah. So, okay, as Richard's done the research for this week, Richard, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, I sort of brought a topic to the table. We're actually going to have a look at a sort of like an ancient deity, but which still appears sort of in church architecture is one place, and I know it's sort of something close to Kerry's heart. We're going to talk about the Green Man.
Yeah. Love a bit of the Green Man.
Yeah.
Is he the father of the Green Children of Warpit?
No.
No, I don't think so. No, but it's sort of, but he's been hanging around in the background, and we are doing a few more shows along this sort of, you could argue whether these are paranormal shows, but I think these sort of concepts and ancient sort of concepts and stuff are valid, and and I do find them rather interesting.
It's more folklore, isn't it? It's more
Yeah.
hits folklore and belief system. Again, back to the belief system. That's where that hits. But in this new age of spiritualism that we're entering, this icon is what I'm going to call it. This iconography of the Green Man is very prevalent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is. It is sort of like. He seems to be quite benign, doesn't he? I mean, I've never read anything bad about the Green Man, but the Green Man just sort of is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like basically it embodies the woodlands and the nature elements of things. Do you know what I mean? That connection to nature and that the cycles of nature and all those sort of concepts come into it with the Green Man, and that's one of the reasons we and I'm going to say we look to this kind of thing, because it is your connection to nature and energy and the interconnectedness of everything and the cycles of nature and all of those concepts we are linked into, and the belief of the energy of each cycle and each particular organic substance having energy, and all of those concepts come under this. And so the Green Man is obviously going to be something that is for us quite prevalent. It's quite out there. I mean, even I've got a Green Man on my wall. Have you noticed? Have you two ever noticed my Green Man?
No,
I think I have. Yeah, I think I have noticed your Green Man. But if you visit her churches, a lot of churches will have a Green Man, especially churches that are quite prevalent that have carvings everywhere. And he's usually above the door, right above the main entrance. You'll see him peering out from foliage.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's that kind of concept that, but is this an ancient thing? That's the question on the table.
Well,
Is he an ancient pagan deity? Is it made up? What is it? Where does this come from? Because for all its popularity in today's world, I would say, our Western world, is it because it's put out there as an ancient Celtic deity? It's got a lot of things hanging on him that not just leaves everybody. That kind of
Terry,
like
you have to lower the tone, don't you?
always, always. So I thought we'd
but
have a bit of
as
discussion about this because you came
yeah,
across an article, didn't you?
yes,
Richard?
I came across an article and it sort of put and and as you pointed out, Kerry, it's it's not that straightforward.
No, not
You
that
know,
straightforward at all.
there there are two sides to this camp, and this article sort of seems to lean heavily on sort of one way, but we'll try and sort of like cut our way through it.
Yeah, we're going to go through it basically because it's quite a disparaging article, I will say. We will find the link for you. So don't worry, guys. We will
I will get the
source
link.
that out so you can read the whole article for yourself. But we're basing this show off of this particular article, mainly because it raises a lot of interesting facets and common problems, should I say, within not just like we see this in the paranormal field generally, but it interested me that it came out from like a folklore side as well, because
Yeah.
where do the roots of folklore come from? And how old are they? I mean, the Green Man is portrayed as a very ancient, old, pre-Christian kind of deity, isn't he?
Well, yes. I mean, it's just that he's carried over to all this. But is he a Victorian folly? Who knows?
Well, we're going to have a look at it.
Yeah.
So, Paul, what do you know about the Green Man?
Well, he's a man. He's green, and he might be related to the Jolly Green Giant.
And is there any, Whovian or Star Trekian kind of comments that you've come across whilst watching it to do with the Green
Well,
Man?
there is actually a green species of alien in Star Trek, the name of which escapes me at the moment. But no, other than that, I can't think of one.
So this is one that they haven't touched on.
Not yet.
Star Trek.
Interesting. Interesting. So basically, whenever someone says about the Green Man, they always talk about how old it is, the ancientness of it all.
Yeah.
But they don't actually know where it all began. Right. So there's lots of mythologies and it crosses cultures and stuff like that. Different other deity names are put on it. But, is it what we think it is the question. Is it as ancient, pre-Christian that it is? If you read certain articles out there, that's exactly what you're going to get. That's what you'll think if you read other articles that are out there. I mean, I
must admit, that's what I was expecting to get, but I found this article and you did point out the disparagement of it, and it was basically the only complete article I could really find that sort of cut both ways, which I thought would make a good podcast.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you, actually, because it's an interesting topic. Now, the birth, death, and rebirth, the resurrection story, is not new. We know that it's a central figure in Christianity, #Jesus, but this comes from, like, if you can see that cycle going off in lots of different ways throughout different cultures.
Even just through the basic nature cycle, isn't it? Is rebirth. It flowers and then it dies, doesn't it? It's sort of it's seen everywhere.
It's seasonal, isn't it? It's a seasonal thing. Now they're saying that Jesus is like basically a cheap version of an ancienter. There's a new word there, everybody, for my dictionary. An ancienter of the Green Man. Yeah, an ancienter version of the Green Man. They've taken that story of the Green Man and basically named him Jesus, and then done a human story overlaid the top of it. But that's not actually the case at all, right? We see, oh God, he's everywhere, right? He's in popular culture still. He's everywhere, right?
Oh yeah, there's some great artwork out there. That's one thing I found whilst I was researching this. People do some great artwork. Sort of Celtic knotty type artwork. With the Green Man appearing there. He certainly is some good stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, God, you've watched Paul Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
I have, yes.
It's in there.
Yes, definitely.
Now, the problem with those kind of pop culture type things is they'll take something like that and they'll write their entire own history about it.
Yeah.
Right. So in that particular show, they do things like sacrifice and stuff like that to him.
Yeah, it's very much dark side of witchcraft.
Yeah.
And they made it a lot darker. Yeah.
They made it a bit dark in that. And the belief that this is an ancient deity that needs this base kind of worship that you would expect if you was thinking of the Vikings, and it's quite base, what I call like the basis of human nature, where you're getting down and dirty and blood and sacrifice and all of those kind of more native kind of forms of worship that's where you would sort of like put it.
Yeah.
From pop culture, that's kind of what you do. It's more of a, like you say, Paul, a more sinister kind of view of him, but that's not necessarily what we think today.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We think more in regards to like the nature and the rebirth cycle and stuff like that. So seasonal. It's more of a, what's the word I'm searching for? That benevolent kind of character. So like you say, you have got a very two different sides, but he ties. I mean, God, think of Lord of the Rings. That's another one.
Yeah.
You've got the guy, what's his blinking name? The big tree thing that the two little hobbits sit in his leaves, and he walks, and then they go and kill all the orcs.
Oh, they're called Ents.
Ents. That's the word I was searching for. Exactly.
Yeah.
He comes out in the popular culture. That's more what we would think of the Green Man nowadays. An Ent, nice and benevolent, looking after his forest,
Yeah.
Ancient, slow, full of wisdom, takes his time, which would actually be what you would think of a tree. I mean, think of the longevity of a tree. You know what I mean? An oak tree or something like that. You know what I mean? That's kind of really more in.
Yeah, I think, as you say, Kerry, I never think of the Green Man as a being as such. I sort of look at him as sort of something more, sort of like an approach, an attitude, and stuff like that. Unlike sort of his historical like folklore figures, like if you said Pan to me, I do sort of think of Pan as a living, breathing entity.
Yeah.
And the Green Man, I don't. It's sort of there to encompass,
There's a lot of mixed mythologies with the Green Man, isn't there? That's how I sort of understand it. There's one person, if you said, oh, what does the Green Man mean to you? It would mean something completely different to somebody else.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of mixed mythologies. Like you say, Pan is associated with the Green Man. Bacchus is associated with him. Even figures like Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like, look at the story of Robin Hood, and the image that comes to your head. I mean, you don't have to sort of like tinker with it too much to be presented with the Green Man, do you?
And all of these things are in our psyche now. They're all linked under a banner, effectively, of the Green Man. But it's too mixed, isn't it? It's too mixed up. So there's no definitive answer of what he is, or what it is, or where it came from, or the mythology behind it.
Yeah, you're right there.
And all, like you said, you came across a lot of imagery on the internet.
Yeah.
Where it definitely hits something within people.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's always hit something with me, but I've never known quite what. I'm sort of, I'm logical enough to say, well, it's not a real person. This never existed per se, and as a cult, as a sort of like a wide religion, the glimpses we do get are very sort of fleeting, I feel.
Exactly. He is as fleeting as a figure in the forest, right? Love that.
Exactly where he belongs.
No.
Well, if he's green, he's going to be well hidden there, so I assume that's where he's going to be wanting to go, isn't it? See where out to the pub. Incidentally, the name of the pub is the Green Man.
Which I love. Yeah, there's a lot of Green Man pubs around.
Yes, there's one not all that far away from me, actually, the Green Man.
Yeah, there's one in Harlow, isn't there? Old Harlow.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. I don't know.
Right next to the old fire ambulance station, which is now St John Ambulance Building.
Right.
And then there's a retained fire station as well. Yeah.
Oh, see that?
All next door.
Hark at little Paul Rook knowing his pub. There are other Green Man pubs available.
only because of the ambulance station.
So what is it? Let's have a look a little bit deeper into where this all came from, basically. There is actually no evidence at all to suggest that anyone in ancient times worshipped the Green Man. There's no actual temple to the Green Man. There's no evidence that anyone offered any kind of sacrifices to him or told any stories about him, that there was any deep symbolic meaning to him, or that it was actually even a deity. In fact, he didn't have the name, the Green Man, until about a century ago.
Yeah.
It was just an artistic motif, I think is what the expression was. Artistic motif, basically a carving.
Yeah. Because, and where the carvings show up, they show up in churches, whether it's the old stonemasons having a bit of a joke, a bit of a laugh. But a lot of people point to his appearance in churches as sort of, a more ancient link that the people that were making these places knew that, it does sort of give to. They used to cite churches on ancient spots, didn't they, of significance? But who knows?
Who knows indeed. Now, this is the first thing I actually have a problem with this particular article, because it's not primeval, it's not ancient, right? But then comes out with the 2nd century CE. In other words, is not ancient. I kind of think that's quite ancient.
Second century.
Yeah.
You're looking at, what's it, sort of 2,000, 1,800 years ago. So but that is the very early knockings of Christianity, isn't it?
Yeah, but all these things were coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of would say, I mean, I suppose they would class Christianity as a new religion. I don't see that as a new religion. I see it as quite an old religion. So it's perception on that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just because, all right, it might not be as ancient, or it might not have been survived. Any pre-evidence of that. I don't know how that could be. I don't know. What do you guys think on that one? Because I thought that was a bit splitting hairs, quite frankly.
Whenever you sort of like take folklore and stuff, folklore in general is always put before Christianity, and Christianity is always pushed as the newer religion, even though it's been with us for 2,000 years now.
I mean, I can
Yeah.
understand his point of saying it's not really older than Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still quite old.
Yeah, you know, there's enough time gone by for it, to have its lineage, isn't it?
In my opinion,
Yeah.
Christianity's got a lineage. This has got, I mean, put it this way, right? There is artwork that has actually been identified as a image of the Green Man in a wall of a building in the ancient city, we'll go with, of Hatra. Now, that's actually in northern Iraq,
Right.
right?
Mm.
And this shows a male face with leaves instead of a beard, right? Which is our understanding of the Green Man's iconography, right? And he says that face was carved in the 2nd century, right? Now, that particular town was an important border town between the Roman Empire and the Parthian Empire, right? So that's quite a good border, right? So
Yeah.
somehow that image has ended up there. Okay.
Well,
So
pointing out that this actual border town would make sense because they wouldn't, there'd be a bit of a melting pot of different religions there, surely.
I know, but the image that they see there, okay, they've dated it to then,
Yeah.
but it's interesting that it's popped up there. Do you know what I mean? As well, to me, because that's sort of something you would see almost as a European
Yeah.
icon rather than
Yeah.
Iraqian icon, quite frankly. Yeah. And then, so you go, okay, so that was an important border town between the Roman Empire and the Parthian Empire, right? Well, don't we talk about Romans as ancient?
Yeah. Well,
I suppose, yeah, you can do, can't you? Yeah.
but they're all in the general sort of historical narrative, aren't they? Our history, anything sort of around from the birth of Christianity, that is sort of looked upon as, like it or not, as modern history. Because the thing with ancient history is it went on a long. Ancient history goes back a good sort of 3 or 4,000 years before that, so that is still an older lineage.
Mm.
We've still got about another 2,000 years to go before we could truly call Christianity an ancient religion.
Oh, okay.
Well, and that's my reading on it anyway.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, no, I think you could describe the Romans as being an ancient empire. Um, I mean, they've been going on for a long time, haven't they?
They had, yeah.
Mm. So
The empire
yeah,
that we're talking about in regards to the Roman,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was a splitting hairs moment. I thought,
I
if
can see where you're coming from.
yeah, I just thought that was a splitting hair thing. All right, I will concede that it may not have appeared before. Like, I would say that I suppose people would think that Green Man #worship, not that there's any proof of that, would have been actually more when we were like nomadic and living in forests and plains and almost like the Bronze Age kind of scenario, kind of thing. All right, I'll concede it might not be as old as that, but it's come from somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
To
agree with you there.
appear in a carving on a wall of a building in ancient city of Hatra, it's come from somewhere. Yeah. Now there are versions of this foliatic head. Ooh, I love that word,
That
foliatic.
sounds good. Foliatic.
Does actually appear in Roman artwork as well. The dish of Bacchus. Told you I said there was a link to Bacchus there, didn't I?
Yeah.
there's a silver dish that dates around the 4th century that was discovered in a Roman villa in the town of Mildenhall in Suffolk, of all places.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right, so that's been discovered. So we know that this icon was around that sort of time period.
Yeah.
They don't think it represents a primeval forest deity. They actually think it represents a Roman sea god, like Neptunus
Oh, right.
or Oceanus. Right, now to be fair, I had not heard of Oceanus. I'd heard of Neptunus,
Yeah.
but not Oceanus.
No, I've never heard of Oceanus before. You would have thought, yeah.
I
I
mean,
thought I was quite down on my sort of like Roman gods, but never heard of him.
no, I'd not heard of that one either.
No.
So I'm going to do a bit of side research on Oceanus because I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of him. And they think that the leaves are not leaves, that they're supposed to be seaweed. But there's a very distinct difference between seaweed and leaves, is all I would say on that one.
Yeah, they're probably splitting hairs on that and all, aren't
I haven't seen the dish, to be fair, to go, well, yeah, it could be either. So I haven't actually seen the dish, but that's what they think. That's what, I don't know.
they? The dish is in the. I've actually seen it, but it was a while ago, and I wasn't aware of anything particularly. It's in the British Museum. There's a hoard of treasure discovered in Mildenhall, which is quite impressive actually. This dish. So I have actually seen it, but I can't remember what was on it.
Ooh. Well, my other half has promised to take me back there because I didn't see the bit that I wanted to see when we went like a little while ago. And I was like, oh, we didn't get to see half of what I wanted to look at. So he's like, right, well, I'll take you back. Don't worry, we'll go back.
Well,
I
yeah,
will
you
check
might as well.
it out.
It's free. Yeah, it's in the British Museum. Yeah.
But we will be going a
So
different route on the underground, is all I'm going to say on that one. Now, the
okie
earliest.
doke.
Not going through Holborn again. No,
Oh dear.
I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. We'll have to hit it from a different
Escalators.
angle. Oh, that was big escalator. That weren't a little one.
Yeah,
It was, I mean, they're
I
no.
know you keep telling us.
Oh, it's big. It's long and windy. Oh, no, didn't like that at all. Anyway, back to the Green Man. The earliest surviving depiction of the Green Man with foliage actually is on a stone sarcophagus, which is in the Church of Saint Hilary of Poitiers in the city of Poitiers in France.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
yep. Now this dates to around the late 4th or early 5th century. So in the early centuries, post Christ,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's what is it? It's BC and AD.
AD, yeah, BC and AD, or they have another sort of before the Common Era. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. In the early centuries, we've got one in Iraq, a Roman plate, and now we've got it on a stone sarcophagus in France. Now, this is
Right.
quite widespread for this iconography. I know people did travel back then. I'm fully aware of the silk trade routes, and trade was actually a lot more than we think it was back then. I know that,
Yeah, sort of
right?
people did move about a fair bit.
They
Yeah.
did move back more than we actually give people credit for, actually, because now it's a
Yeah.
saga traveling. Imagine what it'd been like back in there. But, they did move around a lot. But this is quite a strong iconography to be in quite, what's the word? Set in stone.
Different locales, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of different locations. You've got the Middle East. You've got, and a couple of examples now in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
Quite
It did.
close time frames as well. So
Yeah. I mean, okay, Now the sarcophagus does depict the face of a man surrounded by leaves and new leaves spreading from the face, mouth, and nostrils. So it could be. What do you make of that? What can you make of that? It's relevant enough to be on a building in an important border town. It's important enough to have been carved onto a sarcophagus. It's important enough to have, all right, the plate may well be to do more with a Roman deity than actual.
Well, you don't know.
forest
deity.
deity.
We'll have to and as we said, we'll be dispatching you soon to go and have a look at it.
I'm going
Yeah.
to. I'm going to go now. Not right now because it's late, but you know.
But if it is the Green Man, or it's sort of common enough to be depicted on kitchenware.
Yeah.
Well, it is these days.
Hmm.
You can even get it on a Ouija board, everybody. Right, now there is a
Yeah.
mosaic from the Great Palace of Constantinople, that dates around the 6th century. That depicts the face of a man whose hair and beard are both made of green foliage. And there's a distinct difference now. He's saying it's a definite foliage, not seaweed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, the great dish of Bacchus, which is the Mildenhall silver plate Roman one,
Mhm.
to the mosaic at Constantinople, they are now saying they actually think it was to do with a sea god. In this case, I can't even say this word, Okeanos, which I think is probably the same as Oceanus, or
Yeah.
Poseidon. And they're still saying that this green foliage most likely represents seaweed.
That's what the archaeologists are saying, yeah.
Mm.
But archaeologists are notorious for sort of, if an out of place artifact does crop up, they are quite notorious of this sort of saying. They won't say we don't know. They always like to put something on it to
It's
make
similar to.
it similar
It
to,
reminds
yeah.
us of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Which I won't take. I'm not an archaeologist, so I won't take anything away from the expertise of these people. But I think sometimes blindsided and blinkered comes to mind. If I don't know what
Yeah,
it is,
sometimes, yeah.
that's
You
kind
know.
of what I think sometimes. Rather than remain open-minded about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for who knows? There may well have been a forest deity that was worshipped, the Green Man kind of figure, that was older than the images of Poseidon and seaweed, or Bacchus and his cornucopia, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It may have been something that, because it was a wood kind of deity, would have
But
been
you
carved in
see,
wood and had
people
deteriorated.
back in the day, like 2,000 years ago, the landscape of Europe would have been totally different, and it would have been vastly wooded. Even the UK would have,
Exactly, yeah.
And it's not that much of a leap. There's sort of, surely people back then would have had a deity to incorporate the woodlands.
Yeah. But again, we've got this thing going on between whether or not was it a leaf or was it seaweed. Straight away,
Yeah.
there's oh my God, we don't know. So we're going to go with that because we know about that god.
Yeah.
Right. Now, foliate heads did actually become a popular decoration in Romanesque churches in Western Europe in the 11th, 12th, and 13th century. So we're now jumping forward a bit.
Yeah, we're actually coming way forward.
So, yeah, exactly. And this is in churches. They appear in
because
archways and capitals of the columns. And again, they represent this man disgorging foliage from his mouth. That's not going to be seaweed in a church, right?
no,
Yeah.
no. We are getting to the Green Man proper now, aren't we?
Exactly. But why would they appear in a church? Is the
This is the
question.
thing, sort of, the church has never come clean, whether they know why, because the churches would have been commissioned to actually have the places built, But I've often gone along with the thing. It was the stonemasons having a bit of a laugh. So,
Well, I mean, you do find different types of things in churches. I mean, you've got to think about gargoyles.
yeah,
They're not exactly the prettiest of things, and they're a lot on churches a lot, aren't they?
yeah, gargoyles, yeah.
Paul, you know about gargoyles.
Well, yeah, yeah, pretty much they were just invented really to keep the water from flowing down the brickwork to not destroy it. But yeah, they often depicted horrible creatures that from mythology and stuff, didn't they?
Mm.
But there's some even modern ones where they look like gremlins or Darth Vader.
Yeah, I know. There
Yeah,
was
I've
a
seen the modern
competition,
ones.
wasn't there, at York
Yeah,
Minster? Do you remember York Minster's roof burnt? It had a fire,
yeah,
didn't it?
Yeah,
And then
back
when they
in
were
the
rebuilding it, they did, I think it was a Blue Peter, which is like a children's program on UK, or I don't even know if it's still going, to be fair, on UK television. And I think one of the competition winners was Darth Vader.
yeah.
I think, if I
Yeah,
remember
no,
rightly, it
there
was
was all
something
sorts.
it was something modern. It wasn't something like really ancient. But you see all sorts of things. You see bent over men and the water coming out of its bottom, and you see
Yeah,
gargoyle heads,
Mm.
obviously, coming out of the mouth and stuff like that.
I think
But this isn't like
the
that.
stonemasons. No,
But this isn't like that. This isn't like um, it. It's inside the church.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
It's in
plus they're sort of
prominent.
semi-hidden, aren't they? They're sort of like high up, sort of gazing down and looking through, as I say, looking through a little bit of foliage. Yeah, it'd be interesting when I go to a church next. I'm going to definitely keep an eye out for the Green Man.
I agree. I think sometimes you have to. I mean, we go and look around these places, and it's quite cursory. You go in, you see the font, and you see, like the altar, and you see, you look at maybe some of the stained glass windows and take in
Yeah,
a little of what that's depicting, but you don't really comprehend particularly the older churches, all the little nooks and crannies and the iconography that's within a church. And I think
mm.
sometimes you need to sit, not as necessarily a form of prayer, but really take it in.
I'd agree with you there. Yeah, it's always sort of take more time when you're in a church because well, I won't say the devil's in the detail, but there is detail which can be missed.
A lot of detail.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I would have noticed that when we went to the mermaid
Oh, well,
place.
Orford, yes, and we
I
went into
think
the
if we had just
church.
gone to that church, I don't think I would have noticed that carving on the font.
Yeah, it was the carving of the merman all round the font. Yeah, because
Yeah, I don't think I would have.
yeah, fonts are usually a good place to look, actually, sort of to see what they carve at the bottom of them. Again, I think stonemasons that made them are usually left pretty much to their own devices on what they put on them.
Well, maybe we should look into that, maybe
yeah.
in deeper depth
Mm.
at some point, because that's interesting. It's an interesting. It's interesting to me. I don't think there is allowed that much. What's the word? Leeway. I could be wrong.
Mm.
You know, yeah, I need to look into that actually. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
make a note.
I will. I've just made a note.
Mhm.
Now, we also then see the Green Man motive, like we call it the artistic motive, appearing in works of English neoclassical art in
Hmm.
1867. And there's a painting depicting a male face with a green beard crowned with a wreath of leaves that actually appears on the ceiling of Bankfield Museum. That's in Halifax, in England.
Right.
And again, plants coming out of his mouth.
Mm.
So they do appear, they do occur in ancient, medieval, early modern art, architecture. Okay.
Mhm.
There is images of him out there. But they don't seem, or he says, the guy who wrote the article says he doesn't think that they represent a single primeval pagan nature deity. Well, what do you think it does? That would be my argument on that one. If you've got all these depictions going across cultures,
Hmm.
across time periods, all right, there's no evidence that it was a single pagan deity, but then what was it?
Yeah.
When you're getting the same depiction in several different cultures across, the world, what was it then? If it wasn't that, then give me a concept of what it was.
So could it be like a depiction of an elemental, a nature elemental, or an equivalent to Mother Nature?
That's what I was sort of like edging towards. Are they sort of, this would probably be something Kerry knows a bit more, sort of sprite-like? Would you envision a sprite looking like that, or do you look at sprites as looking completely different?
Different.
Maybe
In
it's just a
my
Smurf,
opinion,
Upper Smurf.
he's
Oh,
not
we're back
blue.
on Smurfs.
Oh God, he's not
Yeah,
blue.
yeah, but we don't know what a Smurf colour looks like, so maybe he's green.
What?
Maybe he's just green. We don't know what a Smurf really looks like. We just assume they're blue because of the cartoon. They might be green.
Where else have you come across Smurfs other than the cartoon?
I'm just saying, it's just like a fairy pixie type thing, isn't it? They might be green.
Okay.
You don't know, do you?
Do
We
you
just
believe that
assume.
Womble's on Wimbledon Common as well, darling?
No, no, no.
I do wonder sometimes, my angel. I do wonder. No,
Yeah,
I
but you
don't know. I
believe.
mean,
Yeah, but you could believe in fairies and pixies, so why not Smurfs? Because they're just essentially the same, aren't they?
I don't believe I can waggle my nose and make a thing happen either. So, if you're going to go for like pop culture, I don't know. I think with this one, I think it's quite dismissive to say that it. I think it's dismissive to say that they don't represent a primeval pagan deity.
Yeah.
That's what my opinion is. That's all it is. My
Yeah.
musing. I'm going to use that word quite a lot now.
Mm.
My musing is that it's very dismissive. I can't. You're not giving me any other explanation to what this could be. You're telling me that it's not linked, but then how does this happen then that this image appears, strikingly similar images of a man's face with foliage around him and coming out of his mouth and beard? How can you explain that then? You know what I mean? Why would they depict that if it's nothing, if it's just a thing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a pagan thing, even if it's an early, I don't know where it's come from originally, but why is it depicted in so many places in so many different cultures that you're now dismissing it as a possible pagan nature deity? I mean, okay, so evidentially we've got no documentation or writings on this to back it up. Right, so like ancient texts and stuff aren't referring to this, so we haven't got any. I'm assuming that's where he would class as getting evidence from.
Yeah.
But you've got the iconography, and you've got it
Yeah. So
widespread.
it's one of these sorts of things. It sort of doesn't seem to be a lot written about, but it's strong enough. There's something there that inspires people to include it in buildings and stuff, which is not sort of carving stuff into stone, isn't it? It's specialist work.
Mm-hmm.
And people are taking their time out to include it, but for what reason, we don't know.
Yeah, but then maybe there isn't a reason. Maybe they just did it for a laugh. I mean, I read an article today actually that was in on social media about a two-headed mummy that was discovered,
Right.
and it just struck me that maybe in the day they just thought, oh no, we'll sew this head on, so years from now the archaeologists will go, what the hell is that? You know,
Oh my word.
you don't know. They might have done it for a laugh.
I mean, I'm not saying sense of humour wasn't around back in the day. It had to be. I mean, God, how could you live with
Yeah.
traumas of the day to not get that? That's actually one thing I would say is sense of humour doesn't translate
No.
particularly well, does it? I mean, it's bad enough in text these days. Someone just makes a joke in text, you're never quite sure whether it's a joke or not, even if they put
Yeah,
laugh
you
out
don't
loud in
know.
the end. But they would have had sense of humour. That's not a new, it's not a new human emotion at all. So they would have had sense of humour. I can't say you can't take that out, but I can't see that for something as important as a silver plate or a sarcophagus or a carving in a church or on a wall in an ancient city, I can't see sense of humour coming into it very much. Can you?
Yeah, you
Maybe
know, it's
not, but
sort
it's
of.
just a theory, isn't it?
Oh no, I won't dismiss it because I can't say that they didn't have a sense of humour because they must have done. But I kind of also think I don't know. I don't know. Sense of humour in ancient times. Now there's a concept. Let me write that down. No, I'm
Yeah.
joking. I'm joking. But they must have had a sense of humour. But whether or not that's part of this, I don't think.
No.
Because of where it is. They're in very sombre religious, churches, for God's sakes. I mean,
Hmm.
when was the last time you had a laugh in a church? No disrespect to the churches out there, but seriously, make it a bit more fun.
You can have a laugh in a church.
Not any time I've been.
Well, you've been going to the wrong churches, haven't you?
Well, yeah, obviously I have. Yeah, clearly I have. Maybe it's all in the delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. So, the very first steps towards this modern conception of this natural nature deity, actually is a lot more modern than we think. And
Yeah,
actually, when you think of like the poets and artists of the Romantic movement, um, it's kind of like very influential and give a very bad, twisted, should we say, impression that pre-Christian religions in Europe were actually all about nature worship. That's
true.
not what we were doing, apparently.
No.
Yeah, because the Green Man heavily sort of, you sort of even a layman would look at it and say, "What's that?" It's a green man with foliage and stuff. It's a nature spirit, or even more specifically, a tree spirit.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, even William Wordsworth, we're going to talk about the early Romantic poet he's classed as William Wordsworth, which he lived between 1770 and 1850. He wrote his famous poem, The World is Too Much with Us. And that's supposed to be about the pagan connection with nature that was lost after the rise of Christianity, because Christianity, bad. Oh, and they came in and they thwarted all of our pagan worship and our druid worship and made us worship Christianity instead. And we basically took on a lot of, what they did was they got all the Christianities, basically looked at our way of doing things and thought, right, well, to make it easier for people to worship Christianity, we'll build our church on where they used to worship, and we'll, tailor our traditions to become about Christ and not this pagan deity or whatever it is that they're talking about. I mean, these more
Mm.
superstitions that people have got to make it more palatable for people to become Christian. There's very much an understand. Oh, that's what we think,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, no,
Yep.
that pretty much covers it, yeah.
That's kind of what we think, but I don't think it was as precisioned as that. I think it's probably more an organic thing more than a precision thing.
Yeah, so you mean it sort of took over slowly and just caught on.
Yeah, and also I think people are great at putting overlay. We talk about overlaying a lot, don't we? We talked about this
Mm.
in the fact of fiction shows quite a lot, the overlaying of history and fiction, and then people take that as historical reference. We've talked
Yeah, I
about that
mean,
before.
I sort of I can understand that because with the Christmas trees, pagans didn't they used to bring them in to the house during the winter because of the sprites and keeping them warm and things like that.
Well, that's our belief.
Yeah, but with the Christians, they obviously, I don't know. Why do the Christians bring Christmas trees into the house?
Well,
it's not. It's a totally pagan thing.
I was just, wondering whether or not they had a bigger influence on that aspect. And like in the street, you'd go like, "Why did you put your Christmas tree in?" It's like, "Oh, so and so and Jesus and all that." And then a few doors down, they go, "Oh yeah, we did it because of the pagan belief." And then they sort of the Christian belief took a bigger presence and grew more than the pagan side of it. And it's not that the tradition changed; it's the reason for the tradition changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do get where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of what nowadays we go, yeah, okay, there's certain pagan traditions we brought on because they've got now a religious overtone to it rather than the pagan overtone. Unfortunately, it's hard to prove anything
Yeah.
because it's not documented. It's not no churchman has sat down and said, right, well, they worship a bloody tree. Oh my God, because they believe this. So, okay, what we'll do is we'll make that about that. Do you know what I mean? And so it's not documented, and it's, so you get the two schools of thought. You've got the people that still go, okay, so it's got its basis in ancient pagan traditions that, we've brought forward and we still do. Yeah. And you've got the other side of people that go, well, there's no evidence of it, so it can't be like that. You know what I mean? And when modern history starts kicking in, when it is more documented and we have got more records of stuff, they take it from that point.
Yeah.
And they go, well, before that point, there's no concrete evidence, so it can't be.
Yeah.
And so it's just, again, very dismissive. There's no way to say it's definitely not or definitely is. So they can debunk, I mean, they call it as like debunking certain things and alleged pagan origins. Well, you come up with an alternative then. But they don't. They just go, well, it's not that because we can't document it. It's not in documentation, so we can't do that. And that I find freaking infuriating.
Yeah.
And very closed-minded. And yes, you know more than I do. I'm not to the experts out there. I'm not sitting here saying like you're wrong. All I'm saying is that's fine then. But then why do we do it? You've debunked it because you can't trace it back beyond, I don't know, the 16th or 17th century. So where did it come from originally? Who was the first person then that thought, oh, it's great, let's go and get a tree and shove it in the front room and, we'll decorate it with things for no other reason than it's pretty.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I have with this.
Yeah.
Because you've got tantalising tidbits pre all of this. This go back to the Green Man. Tantalising tidbits in like the 2nd century, the 4th century, the 5th century, the 6th century, that coming forward into the 10th, 11th, 12th century, coming forward into the neoclassicals in like the 17th and 18th century. Do you know what I mean? So you've got this going on, but because there's no documented evidence of this, and we found nothing specifically concrete to say it wasn't worshipped as a pagan deity, then it can't possibly be that. Well, sorry, but I'm getting a bit annoyed about it, actually.
Calm down, dear.
Can you tell? Can you tell? I find it very dismissive, and I don't like that. Because for all the people that go, critical thinking, yes, important. I don't disagree with you. Do your research. Yes, I don't disagree with you. But you've also got to understand that all sciences, archaeology, historians, all of those, it's an ever evolving situation.
It is, yeah. This is
As well as much as anything else, it's ever evolving. Our understanding is forever reaching forward. It's always moving forward. There's always be a piece of evidence out there that you can't explain. Yeah. So don't
Yeah.
dismiss it just because you can't explain it. In exactly the same way in the paranormal field, we would go, well, there's a piece of evidence there. I can't explain it. That means it's probably faked or not paranormal. Yeah, the chances are it probably isn't, but we can't explain it at this moment in time. That doesn't mean in 10 years' time we won't be able to understand it or explain it. It just means at this moment in time, we don't understand it, rather than standing in an academic position of, well, I debunked that, so it's got to be true. I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Freaking hate that attitude. Anyway.
All right, my dear, calm down.
Anyway.
Mhm.
Oh, dear. Oh, jeepers. So, where are we? Now, we can't deny Christianity is the dominant religion. And we can date that
Yeah.
generally, can't we?
Yeah.
Pre that, we've got a lot of, maybes and they did a bit of this, and we know the Romans and we know the Greeks. We kind of know their mythologies.
Because basically they were great record keepers. That's why we know so much about them, and that's why they're sort of, we don't look at them as being ancient, because we know them.
We know them because they documented it. And how did they document it? How did the ancient Greeks and the Romans document their stuff? They carved it. They put it into their artwork. They put it onto their walls. They put it into their statues. They put it out there. So it's in your face, basically. And we can gain understanding from that. And yet we can't gain understanding from one image of a face with foliage around his head, on his beard, and coming out of his mouth. That's all I'm saying.
Interesting one.
Anyway. Now, where are we? In 1854 to 1941, a guy called James George Fraser wrote a book called The Golden Bower, a study in comparative religion. Okay,
Right.
so basically he's looking at magic and religion, which could be read as paganism, occult, that kind of thing. Religion, Christianity.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's basically comparing the two. Yeah, he's sort of looking at both. Now, in that book, he basically claims that every religion in that period of time, in every single part of the world, was centered around a male deity who was associated with agriculture and vegetation. And we go into the cycles of he died in the autumn during the harvest season and he was reborn in the spring. Right?
Yeah.
And he claimed that many Western European folk traditions are actually rooted in the worship of this cyclical vegetation god.
Right.
All right. Now, basically, his inspiration and his perspective is clearly from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
And what he does is he takes lots of different figures from different mythologies, from different cultures, from the Egyptians to the Greek mythological figures to English folklore, and basically fits it into this narrative of this single male like deity, nature deity that they all worshipped before Christianity come along, and then Christianity basically renamed it to Jesus. Right, so he was basically arguing the point that the Jesus figure was older than anything because of these other ancient things. It's come off the back of this. It's just an evolved situation. Okay. Now, nowadays, anthropologists and folklorists disregard Fraser's work. It's outdated, it's misguided, it's tailored to fit the narrative.
Yeah.
Where haven't we seen that before? Okay. And basically, a guy called Sir Edmund Ronald Leach gave this following assessment of Fraser's work, right? And this was in 1982. This is how he's seen. Right, so I'm going to read this. This is a quote. Fraser uses ethnographic evidence, which he culled from here, there, and everywhere, to illustrate propositions which he had arrived at in advance by a priori reasoning, but to a degree which is often quite startling. Whenever the evidence did not fit, he simply altered the evidence.
Right.
So basically, he started off with a theory, which most people do, and then tailored evidence to fit his theory, historical reference to fit his theory, which you shouldn't do. It's naughty.
Right.
That's a bit naughty.
Yeah.
Because one of the things Fraser cites in that book is that as far back as the 5th century BC, Roman Saturnalia, which was celebrated around the time of the winter solstice in late December. Okay.
Yeah.
There is no evidence that it's ever been held at any other date. That's what Fraser said.
Right.
Okay. But Saturnalia ought to have been a spring festival that was held around the end of February. So he basically made it up to which, you know, what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He conjectured that at one time this had been the case. So he says, like, basically it was a spring festival, not a winter festival. But all the evidence points to it being the winter festival. So he's tailored it to how he wanted it to be, with no evidence to back that up. That's not what you should do. At the end of the day, you have a theory, and if it doesn't fit, you modify your theory. You don't modify the facts to fit your theory. You know what I mean? It's the other way around. You start with the theory, and that evolves. The theory evolves, not the facts.
Not the facts, yeah.
You can't change facts.
No,
However,
definitely not. Fixed point.
Exactly, but what you are, the only argument I've got on this one is, again, it's what we think of that. So we're looking at history from a modern, it's like who built the pyramid? Why did they build the pyramids? We look at it from a modern perspective. Go back in time to then, it might be a completely different reason. Do you know what I mean? But we look at it from a modern perspective. So it's a well-known thing. But you really should, if you've got a theory, you've got to look at the facts, and if your facts aren't fitting your theory, then you change your theory. And you have to be open-minded enough to accept that it may not be right. You see this with physicists. Thank you.
Physicists.
Yeah. Yeah. You see this. What was the guy's name? Stephen Hawking put forward a theory on black holes. Right?
Yeah.
It was a theory he came up with. Basically, the rest of the physicists around him were sort of went, oh, no, it can't be that. And then further research was done. And now, even Stephen Hawking's changed his theory, but now they're coming back to his original theory because of the research that's been done since.
Mm-hmm.
So it does happen.
Yeah.
Okay? But they're moving with the evidence in front of their eyes. He's come up with a theory. The evidence, other argue doesn't fit. And then further evidence has come out to say, well, actually, it's now looking more like that was relevant. So I do think you have to be prepared to evolve your theories, folks.
Yeah.
Out there. But anyway, although Fraser's book and his writing was quite speculative, they said, and inaccurate in places, he was really popular.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, unfortunately, incredibly influential, particularly on the early 20th century British folklore.
Yeah, a lot of people took it up. Yeah.
One person in particular, a British aristocrat named Julius Somerset, Lady Raglan, took it up.
Yeah.
Now, Lady Raglan, let's talk about Lady Raglan. They say that Lady Raglan single-handedly has invented the entire concept of the Green Man as he is known today.
Yes.
He didn't have to do a lot.
No.
She wrote a single 13-page article titled The Green Man in Church Architecture. It was published in March of 1939 in an edition of the Folklore Journal. That journal is now changed to simply Folklore. Okay. And basically, that's where this Green Man folklore comes from.
Ah.
Interesting.
How we know it today.
Ah.
Interesting.
It is, isn't it?
Miss Ragland.
And on that little bombshell, we're going to take a little break. And we'll be right back after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK radio network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
Welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And we're looking into the mythology and possible historical evidence, if there is any, on the Green Man. And we got to quite a integral point, didn't we, boys?
Oh, yes.
We did, yeah. Which
Lady
we're going to go.
Raglan.
I was about to say that we're going into now.
The Lady Raglan herself, who we said basically single-handedly invented the entire concept of the Green Man.
Oh, there you go.
And she did it for a laugh. Like
And she
we said
did
earlier.
it in a single
Problem solved.
13-page article.
Ah.
You know what? I'd like to do that. I'd like to write a single 13-page article, basically, and then change the entire belief system of a whole paganized generation. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah.
can see that happening. Not.
Well, she managed it.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, she introduced herself by explaining how she invented the name, the Green Man, in around about 1931. This was early 1930s, right? And basically, she's talking about these heads that we see in British churches, you know, the carvings that we see. And so, yeah, that's basically what she did. So this is how she puts it. It is now about 8 years ago since my attention was first drawn by the Reverend J. Griffith, then Vicar of Langwim in Monmouthshire, and himself a folklorist, to a curious carving. It is a man's face with oak leaves growing from the mouth and ears and completely encircling his head. Mr. Griffith suggested that it was intended to symbolize the spirit of inspiration, but it seemed to me certain that it was a man and not a spirit, and moreover, that it was a green man. So I named it. And the evidence that I've collected to support this title is the reason for this paper.
Oh, right. There you go.
So basically, it wasn't her that named it. It was the other geezer that she was talking to. Because he described it a Green Man, and she said, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'll call it that." Well,
No,
he's already done that.
No, he described it as the spirit of inspiration.
Yeah, but then the Green Man.
No, he didn't. It was her.
No.
It was her who said it was it.
Okay.
She said, no. I'll read it again if you want.
No, I believe you.
Okay, no. Mr. Griffiths just said it was to symbolise the spirit of inspiration, which is a possibility, right? From a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By that.
Because how often do you sit in nature and blows the cobwebs away, and you can, opens your mind a bit, it gives you breathing space. You know what I mean? We've talked. How often do we say get out in nature? You think things through in nature in a way that you can't do when you're like bogged down at home or at work, or in your surrounding. Get out in nature. It just is a cleansing thing mentally. It gives you breathing space. It gives you mind space to do that. So psychologically, going out for a walk into nature is actually a really good source of inspiration.
Yeah, it is.
Watching the sunrise, standing on a hilltop and looking at the vista that lays out before you. It is. It's a source of inspiration.
Yeah.
And nature itself is a source of inspiration. How many, engineering feats have actually come off the back of inspiration from what they've witnessed? An apple falling from a tree comes to mind.
Mhm.
Wasn't an invention so much as a realization. You know what I mean? By Newton, gravity. Correct?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
Nature is very calming in itself.
exactly. So I can understand the Reverend Griffith saying it was symbolizing the spirit of inspiration and faith, and all of those kind of scenarios. I mean, they one of the great things is they say you always know the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Although if you read some of the science alerts at the moment, then you're probably wondering if it will actually rise tomorrow. But I digress. But you know what I mean? It's like it. No matter how bad things get, it always evolves. It always moves on. The sun will always come up tomorrow. The birds will keep on singing. The trees will keep on growing. The grass will still grow. Flowers will still flower. Do you know what I mean? The fundamentals of that alone is comforting and supporting. And that could be what it is.
Yeah.
That could be all that is.
Yeah,
A symbol. Right?
definitely.
But Lady Raglan named him the Green Man. That's where the name comes from. Now, she goes on to discuss carvings from the English churches that she says that is under this banner of the Green Man. And she basically is very speculative musings. She muses, shall we
Yes.
say,
Yeah.
what she thinks the Green Man might symbolise. Basically, coming off the back of, do you remember Fraser,
Yeah.
the Golden Bower?
Yeah.
So she's obviously read that. And then off the back of that, speculated on this Green Man that got pointed out to her in the church by the Reverend Griffith.
Mm-hmm.
She concludes that he must be definitive an ancient pagan nature deity.
All right.
Okay. And must have been believed to have died and risen again. So we've got a religious overtone of the resurrection story in there still.
Yeah.
And she says that pagans must, again definitive, have performed a ritual in springtime in which a mortal man must have been chosen to represent the Green Man himself and then been sacrificed.
And
Lovely.
they ritually sacrifice. Yeah.
Love a ritual sacrifice. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that job had many takers.
Can imagine, can't you?
Yeah.
Now she says that this is something that's we talked about it hits something in our psyche at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
This is basically what she says, that it's so deep within us. We have this framework within us, this magical rite of this spring sacrifice. And anybody who's read The Golden Bower are familiar with this theory. A man was chosen to represent the god, and he, after conferring by the proper magical ceremonies his strength and fertility upon his people, was sacrificed. Perhaps by hanging, she puts out,
Yeah.
decapitated, and then his head placed in the sacred tree.
As
Yeah.
you do. Yeah.
As you do, right? Hence why all the foliage coming out of his head and mouth, because obviously
That's
it's a
funny. She
decapitated
sort.
head.
Yeah. Because the Celts had a cult of the head as well, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not a new idea, the cult of the head, and they used to have. I think the Celts used to have groves where they displayed heads of their captors.
But that's no different from, I don't know, King Henry VIII chopping off someone's head and putting it on Tower Bridge.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
Quite frankly,
but that's not.
it's
But
not the same thing.
they weren't ritually sacrificed. They were criminally executed, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that, and that has been the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference. But again, she's taking facts to fit her theory,
Yeah.
not fitting her theory to fit the facts.
Yeah.
Because as this article has already said, there's no actual evidence of this. It's just what this woman has said. There's no actual evidence of this, no documented evidence that that's what happened. That's what they did.
Because you're looking at another sort of thing there's no documented evidence for is like the Wicker Man, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, people will sort of loosely say, and it's to do with the Druids, but there's no actual evidence of there ever actually being a Wicker Man. I mean, that is a 17th century sort of story, because very little is known about what the Druids done.
Exactly. Now, I'm not sitting here saying, well, she's right. I'm not saying that at all. I think she's not right at all. I think she jumped to huge leaps of assumption. And in some ways, I am very sympathetic now towards the folk, the academic side, because they're going, there is no evidence of this. Why are you saying that? I kind of get that as well. I see both sides of the argument. On one hand, I don't think they should dismiss things, but on the other hand, I kind of understand it when people make up a load of crap, like, a man was chosen as magical ceremonies and fertility upon his people, and then he was sacrificed, his head was put in the tree. It's like, oh my God.
Maybe that's what the Green Man was,
Hashtag too far.
Yeah.
I was with you.
Pagan
I was
Wicker
with
Man.
you. I was with you. And oh my God, no. It's kind of that. And again, she takes things from ancient history like Odin and Attis, both hanged, and she reckons that the Green Man was a descendant from the same myth. There is no evidence at all to support this conclusion. She's basically, God, she's got herself a story. She's ran with it big time.
Yeah, she's sort of like finding any other sort of ancient religion that sort of vaguely sort of has a tree involved or heads or whatever and run with it, isn't she?
And she ain't stopped yet.
But as I said, head culture is sort of worshipping heads and stuff is that can be traced back a long time.
Okay, yeah, I know. But I do this is where I kind of get a bit sympathetic towards the academics on this one. Because when they read something like this, they must be like knocking their head against the brick wall going, oh my God. What? Where did you get that from? Where? Give me a reference to where you found that or thought that or where your inspiration came from on that. Have you got any evidence per se other than this image in a church, which we know about?
Yeah.
We know it. We know about that bit. But have you got any evidence to suggest that it links to this sacrifice? You haven't. Right. Well, then you can't. Again, you can't have it both ways in regards to moaning at the archaeologists and people like that and saying, oh, they're very dismissive. We haven't got that documentation. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. To then going, but this happened. We'll prove that then as well.
Yeah.
All we can do at this point is go, yes, those images are out there. Yes, we've got them dated to certain points in centuries. Yes, we think they're this, but it's a tenuous link. We don't know. Either side.
Yeah.
At this point, in my opinion, everybody, you're saying that's what I'm taking from this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that the folklorists, Lady Raglan, meaning folklorist type person, should put something out as musts and this is exactly what happened, because she's got no evidence to back that up. There's nothing at all.
Especially if you are a folklorist, I mean, that is pretty much, you sort of, yeah.
However, her conclusions were very much in line with the way of thinking at that time. So it became very popular.
Right.
Okay, and that's how come she basically caused what our perception is now of the Green Man.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Makes sense.
yeah, I mean that's basically where it comes from. So to give you an idea of how ancient or how recent this ancient pagan deity thing it really is, H.P. Lovecraft introduced a character called Thulhu in his short story The Call of, I'm probably saying this completely wrong. Andy Mercer's probably going to have a little meltdown when he listens to this show and go, no, that's not how you say it. The Call of Thulhu was first published in a magazine, Weird Tales, in 1928, right? And this was a full decade before Lady Raglan. And basically, the Thulhu is more ancient than the notion of the Green Man as an important pagan deity.
Right.
And who was that again?
Thulhu.
Thulhu, yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay.
Who we really need to talk about at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need
Or you could write a blog on him.
I think we could do a show on H.P. Lovecraft, to be fair.
Okay,
It's
cool.
incredibly
We'll do
popular.
that.
I do believe Andy Mercer is doing something to do with Lovecraft.
Okay.
I'm sure he mentioned something like that last time we spoke.
All right.
Yeah, I might have to dig our little Mercer out of his little editing cave.
Yeah, you'll have to get him out of the closet.
Get him out the closet and
Yeah,
give him an airing.
Beautiful brain.
Yeah, he'd like that.
I think he would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, apart from this image that we've got, what does it mean? What is it? If it isn't a pagan god,
what does it represent?
What does it represent?
I mean,
Mother Nature's dad.
We don't know. That's the answer. They don't know. They have no idea. They know it's out there, but they don't. It's one of those mysteries. It's as mysterious as I was going to say the pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just someone that's sort of possibly been around a long time, but nobody knows his true origin or what he was there to represent.
Maybe Father Christmas.
We only have fleeting glimpses of him now in sort of church architecture and and the musings of folklorists and people like that.
I mean, there is an assumption, obviously, that leaves nature. It's not a huge leap of assumption there, to be fair, but it is an assumption. But leaves can mean different things. We know that they're very symbolic. Plants are very symbolic. We learned about that in heraldry.
Well, yeah.
Right. So when we did the heraldry show, the thistle. What does that mean? Can you remember?
Oh, I forgot what the thistle meant, Paul.
No, I don't know.
No, it's for a country. Which country is the thistle?
Oh, yeah,
there you go. Oh my God.
It's the football one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a football.
But why? How did the thistle become Scotland's native plant, or not native plant? Symbolic plant for Scotland.
Because it's everywhere.
Because it just is.
Yeah, it's because it's everywhere.
Do you know what I mean? There probably is a story behind it, but it's accepted as that. So this could be something as simple as that. The leaves and the fact that it's a man's face with leaves coming out of his mouth and beard may be symbolic, not and that has meaning, not as a deity, but as a meaning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It may not be linked to nature. You wouldn't go, Scotland's thistle. You go and see thistles everywhere in Scotland. There probably are loads.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that. It could be sort of, it could be conveying some sort of information, but that's it. It's not sort of mainstream information. It's not important enough to be upheld anything further than above its station.
But the other thing you also have to consider is, right, we've talked about Iraq, we've talked about France, we've talked about Roman era with these, we've talked about Norman churches, we've talked about all sorts of different cultures and time spans. And we've also just said that leaves can mean different things in different cultures. It might not mean the same thing in each culture.
Yeah.
It might be an image that has sort of like, I mean, we
grown
talk
independently in separate places, which it does happen.
When we talked to Andy about the CU, collective unconscious, he talked about certain images and ideas bubbling up from like a base rock. What he basically said was like how he explained it was like there were islands, so like all different types of islands, different cultures, but the same ideas are bubbling up in all of these different cultures independently, and he called it the unconscious collective, which where they're coming from, like deep psyche. So they're not interacting, but these same things are bubbling up through consciousness. This could just be another one of those kind of scenarios.
It's just something that's bubbled up independently. It could be.
Possibly, I don't know. Again, it might be an idea to get Andy on and basically throw lots of different ideas at him. And he'd be like, what? Where's this coming from? What's that coming from? Because he's very learned, is our Andy.
It'd be like, I'll resign.
It'd be like, what the hell? Where did this come from? And I'm like, well, we've been doing a little bit of digging and we didn't know. So we thought we'd ask you because you do know. He might not know the answer to that. But so it might be it's one of those kind of scenarios. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas and theories and musings out there from my limited understanding. And, who knows? In Rome, they had lots of different gods meaning different things. It could just be a representation of that particular god of Bacchus. In England, it could be, I don't know, Pan, or Greek, come from there. Who knows, right?
Yep, absolutely.
There is slight differences in some of them. Like we said, the great dish of Bacchus is very different or doesn't seem to represent the same as what we see in the churches. It's similar, but it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they think it's seaweed, not leaves. I haven't seen it. I can't comment. So, but it could be a symbolic meaning rather than a god or a deity.
Yeah. It could though be just interpretation of God.
It could be.
Yeah.
Because if like the tree of knowledge, you've got the tree of knowledge obviously, and God's supposed to be all knowing, so why wouldn't he be depicted in that way?
I don't know, but there are different gods around that people have, put through over the years.
Well, I mean, this would be like a pre-Christian type of God, wouldn't it? So it does.
That's what they're saying. That's
what
the general understanding is that's what it is. But as I say, there's no evidence to back that up.
No, and then like an offshoot of it would be Mother Nature as well.
I think you get a lot of themes tied in, don't you?
You do, don't you?
With it, and that's the problem. It's overlaid and overlaid and overlaid and overlaid, and then somebody's read a book and thought, "Oh, yeah, that fits,"
and then links it together and
links it together. Yeah. I mean, there is a god that we know about called again. It's not really the one I was going for, but hey ho.
Okay.
And this is like a Gaelic Roman kind of god. And this god is called Karanus.
Karanus. All right.
Cernunnos or Cernunnos.
Right.
Right, now this deity, and they do call this one a deity, is usually has antlers, sits cross-legged, stags. Think stags usually seen in the forest, carries a cornucopia. They think this was a Celtic deity. Lots of different examples.
Sounds very much like Herne the Hunter, doesn't it?
That's exactly it. Think Herne, think Karanus or Cern or Seronus or however you say this word. Yeah, basically, the horned god.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again in Wicca, this is a deity that is talked about and whatnot. But again, it's more of a thing of the forest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Her and the hunter was depicted in, oh God, again, popular culture this comes through from. You know, do you remember they did a TV series of Robin Hood years ago?
Yeah, Robin
Yeah.
of Sherwood. That was
Robin of Sherwood.
excellent series that was.
It was good. And he consorted with a figure in the forest, a horned figure in the forest. That was
Herne the Hunter.
Serenus, or Herne the
Seron.
Hunter. They called him
Yeah.
Herne, but that comes from this Synonus, or
Yeah.
Karanus, as I call him. But I probably said that completely wrong.
We'll
Everyone's
just
gonna
call him Fred.
Fred in the forest. Yeah. But this idea of a nature kind of deity is not new.
No, I mean there are others you can point to, isn't it? It's just we're having difficulty trying to hang that, or people throughout history have difficulty hanging that onto the Green Man motif.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I will say that this particular god is always depicted with stag's antlers. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, that's really where that one comes from. But again, that crosses culture, and
Yeah.
is that kind of belief system hangs out in the forest, you know.
Hangs out with his mates.
Yeah.
Chills. Smokes a lot.
You know, quite
Yeah.
chilled. And actually becomes associated through Wicca, through the early writings of Margaret Murray.
Yeah.
And basically, her hypothesis was that various horned deities were expressions of a proto-horned god, published her theory in The God of the Witches. Controversial at the time, adopted by Gerald Gardner a lot in his religious movement of Wicca.
Yeah.
And again, reflects the seasons of the year in the annual cycle of life, death, rebirth, all of those things that we've talked about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, his imagery is a blend of different gods. The Greek god Pan, the Green Man motif, all these things. Again, we've got all of these imageries overlaying and interplaying, and we can link it to this particular one. Do you know what I mean? We've got more evidence per se on this one than we have of the Green Man. So, you know, I don't think this birth, you know, we talk about the maiden mother crone. We talk about, it's all cyclical. It's all to do with nature cycles. It's to bring that belief system through in whatever way you want to dress that up. Green Man, Jesus, you know,
Mother Nature,
you know, Gaia, you know, whatever way you want to put it on it, it's the basic understanding of cycles. And we all go through cycles, not just in, you know, nature is the pure example of cycles, but we take cycles within our own life as well. You know, the cycle of being a child into adulthood, the adulthood into, you know, the crone, the older age. You know, they're all cycles of life. You know, we all go through those to some degree or other.
especially when we watch The Lion King.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
They sing about it, don't they?
They certainly do. You can always trust Paul to come up with something, can't you?
Yeah.
You can always trust him to come up with something. Goodness me. But that is the basis of belief system there. Cyclical energy.
Yeah.
Birth, death, resurrection.
Regeneration.
And that understanding of that, and how we are, I think it's interpretation of the world, isn't it? How we can interpret the world and make sense of it and understand it, and how we can break it down into manageable chunks. You know.
Yeah. definitely makes sense.
Break it down into seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. You know, these fundamental teachings are there. They're out there.
Yeah,
And however way you dress it up, unfortunately, the purists out there like evidence. They like evidence.
of course they do.
But sometimes there's not going to be evidence to back up your theory. And you have to, as I say, if you're going to come out with a theory, then be prepared, if the facts don't fit, to put that out there. Don't put it out there as an absolute. Musings.
Again, I've just popped on the internet and I'm having a look at the dish of Bacchus as we speak.
And what do you think of is it seaweed?
They're not close-up pictures. Can't really see anything to be. Oh, no, it does look like a depiction of the Green Man to me.
Oh, controversial. We'll have to go and
Spooky.
see it in real life, Richard.
Yes, we'll have to go to the British Museum. Yeah, I haven't been there for a while. And the Milden Hall treasure. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to source that out.
Yeah. But we can go to Atlanta's bookshop as well.
Oh, God, I'd never get him out of there.
There, and there's a couple of other occult bookshops around there as well. So,
God help us all.
I'm going to have to take some money with me.
oh yeah.
Right, Paul, you've written a new blog.
I have. It's not out yet until tomorrow, so that'll be Wednesday. It's to follow on from your blog, Kerry.
That's right.
Yeah, really interesting.
It most certainly is. And what is it on?
It'll be on our website.
You're not going to give people a title?
No, I'm going to let them go and have a look for themselves. Go to www.paranormalconcept.com.
Where you can find all of our past shows, all of our past blogs, and basically catch up with everything we've ever done. Well, a lot of what we've done. And don't forget, whilst you're at it, go over and check us out on social media. Paranormal Concept Show. That's the one you need to find.
Yep, and our blogs all follow on from each other. So if you haven't read any of them, you have to go right to the beginning and start all over.
We started off this time last year with The Power of Three, if I remember rightly.
We did.
Yeah.
And you'll have to follow it through to see how people how we each bounced off each other. And if you can follow that, then you're probably a greater person than we are.
I think some bounced higher than others.
Well, you'll have to check it out. And please feel free to get in contact with any of your own musings or thoughts or ideas or anything you'd like us to talk about maybe on a future show. A little bit short this week, but we've run out of steam on this particular topic.
The Green Man, they're definitely a bit more complex than what I thought, but there's definitely food for thought and places to go and see and visit as well, which is always a good thing. I mean, don't just sort of take our word for it. It's all like, we've given you a few pointers and get out there and go and look for yourself.
Yeah, most definitely. And next time you're in a church,
just keep an eye out for the Grey. He might be peering at you from the top of a pillar or top of doors, or just keep an eye out and make your day more worthwhile.
You never know what you might see up in the eaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, a face looking at you with the leaves.
On that note, say good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.